After being someone that quite enjoyed Jesse Eisenberg's directorial debut, When You Finish Saving the World, I was naturally quite excited to see his second feature, A Real Pain. I'm really excited to talk about this one with you guys, so let's get into it. So this film, starring Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin, is about two cousins traveling to Poland to visit a former residence of their grandma who has recently passed away, and they embark on a Holocaust tour. This film naturally does tackle some very serious subject matter about generational trauma, but it's a lot more than that, as it explores the relationship between the two central characters. Jesse Eisenberg being a very organized person with a family life in New York City, and then Benji, played by Kieran Culkin, who is someone who is a little bit of a loose cannon. He has this knack for connecting with people, but he's very spontaneous and can suddenly switch on a dime and become someone that can be quite confrontational, but also wants to feel things very deeply. This is a film about dealing with loss and that grieving period, as well as re-establishing a connection between family members who have grown apart over time. I think Eisenberg does a fantastic job here with both his direction and especially his screenplay. This is one of the smartest screenplays of the year, hands down, and I understand why it has been getting screenplay nominations. It's the type of film that doesn't feel all that urgent at first. I mean, it has a very lighthearted nature to it, a lot of great comedy. Some of it does feel improvisational, and some of it feels very structured and scripted, and the way it navigates both is perfectly handled, I thought. You have 1 minute where Kieran Culkin is just going crazy, really having a lot of fun with this role. And then the next minute you have some very serious scenes, like one at a former concentration camp that I thought was extremely moving, and was a scene that perfectly captured the gravity of a location like that and the history that happened there. Obviously extremely tragic, and the way Eisenberg captures that I thought was really well done. But it's really interesting seeing the dynamic between these two characters who feel a little bit like one complements the other. They both have complete opposite strengths and weaknesses. Kieran Culkin is the type of character that can make friends with anybody, be this memorable presence, but doesn't necessarily have too many very deep connections in his life, which brings up about the significance of that grandmother and that grieving process for Kieran Culkin's Benji. Jesse Eisenberg is someone who is very structured, doesn't want to do anything that might be confrontational. He doesn't make friends very easily, but he does have some significant relationships, like with his wife. The film is also incredibly personal for Eisenberg himself. A lot of these locations that he visited were ones of his own past, where he's visiting locations where his family once stood, and I thought that was really important in creating a lot of authenticity to each and every scene. It's definitely an interesting dynamic and group of characters, and it was even more interesting to realize that Jesse Eisenberg was initially going to play Benji, Kieran Culkin's character, but Emma Stone, who served as a producer on this film, recommended, hey, you're directing this film, it's very hard to lead a set when playing that type of role. And he took that advice and brought in Kieran Culkin, who was utterly brilliant for this role. I mean, he has been on such a hot streak. Obviously with Succession was incredible what he did there, and then bringing some of that over to A Real Pain was awesome. Definitely a very different character in a lot of respects, but I quite liked Benji and what it represented for the film. The very opening and closing shots of this movie managed to tell so much. I specifically thought the final 2 key frames at the very end of this movie communicate a lot about these characters, and was the true testament as to why the screenplay is very brilliant. It was something that I didn't fully appreciate when I first watched it, but as you sit and think about it a little more, something clicks there. And I think when it clicked, it really felt cathartic and quite emotional, to be honest with you, because it was just beautiful the way it is all handled. And the way that Eisenberg is able to craft such a really well executed narrative that feels personal, that has something to say. Yes, it does feel a little bit too light at times, and I did think when I was first getting into it that it wasn't really hitting me with the emotional knockout moments that I thought it was going to give me. There was also one particular sequence in a graveyard that was really well done and was one of the better moments from Kieran Culkin as a performer in this movie. I thought that that sequence felt very awkward and uncomfortable to watch for sure, and the way that he played across from Will Sharp was utterly fantastic. But it is a scene that communicates a lot about these characters and who they truly are, that they're not just this easygoing, light-hearted person. No, they've got a lot of weight to them at times, and they're going through a lot, and they want to sit and stir in some of this emotion and not just be talked to and have this certain amount of coldness presented to them. And yes, while Kieran Culkin has been getting all the buzz, and rightfully so, I think Jesse Eisenberg is fantastic too. This is one of his best performances in a little while. I thought he was really great in this movie. There's certain little moments with his physicality within the role that I quite liked, especially one sequence at a train station where he seems very agitated and upset, and he's doing this little bouncing motion. It's just a nice little touch to this character, and I do think his character is very layered. The way they are very self-deprecating people, especially Eisenberg's, but you realize that he's not just this plain old guy. He has a lot to be grateful for. He is a very guarded person, but underneath all that, he feels deeply as well. And once again, these two characters complement each other really nicely. And while I definitely do like Jesse Eisenberg as a director, I like the vision he brings, I like the type of stories that he's been telling with these first two movies of his and the types of characters that he portrays, there are some small things that he needs to work on, some small details that I noticed, and I might be getting into a little bit of CinemaSins territory here, but there was one moment near the end of the film where they're heading towards an exit, and suddenly they have a little scene and Eisenberg goes the opposite way. It's like, bro, you're heading towards the exit and now you're going back to where you were. I mean, just a little moment like that. I mean, it's not a lot, but it just shows that there are certain details that Eisenberg might need to sharpen up on a little bit as a director. You do see a little bit of inexperience there. But I mean, that is such a tiny nitpick. He definitely shows a lot of promise. And yeah, this film is really well done, and I do recommend it to you guys. As a score, I'm going to give A Real Pain a kind of weak 4.5 out of 5. It is an excellent film, and I was going between 4 and 4.5. I initially thought 4, but as I'm talking about this movie with you guys, it's really hard to pick out a lot of things that irked me or made me go, oh, I don't know about this movie. A lot of this movie is just so well crafted that I think I have to bump up that score a little bit. And those are my thoughts towards A Real Pain. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'd like to hear if you think its Oscar chances and awards contention is deserved. It seems to be getting in basically Best Picture, Screenplay, and Supporting Actor for Kieran Culkin. I'd like to know if you agree with that. What are your takes on this movie? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe. And remember, voting is closing very shortly for the People's Choice Award for the 3rd Annual Kane Eddy Awards. I'm starting to put that video together now. It's going to be excellent, guys. So make sure to tune in on January 10th. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.